Hello everybody, it is me, GamePenguin21, and today, well, onward to newer adventures. Now, obviously, in order to make my content more, timeless or less dependent on various aspects of time, there is definitely times when the salt just tends to just dry up, but there is one person you can always rely on for good amounts of salt, and that is the person we are talking about today, which is the Nintendo fanboy, Harman Smith. Now, what happened with Harman Smith this time? Well, apparently there are more emulators that are being taken down by Nintendo. Now, as some of you may or may not know, through various means, emulation is actually legal in copyright law type things. The only problem with it is the fact that people are trying to pirate their games. Piracy and emulation are not the same, as people have gone over in other videos. Now, this video has been kind of floating around for a bit, but not everyone has been talking about it, so I wanted to give my own 2 cents on this. So without further ado, if you like what it is that I do and want to support me out the way, shapes, or form, please hit that like and subscribe button and click that link down in the description below to follow me on other socials. With that being said, let's get started.
Dolphin tried to kill Nintendo. It failed. Yuzu tried to kill Nintendo. It failed. And now Ryujinx tried to kill Nintendo. And it failed. Again, this is basic pattern recognition, right? This should be a complete debunking of the narrative among the PC master race.
Well, to initiate this debunking myself, Yuzu, Dolphin, as well as Ryujinx weren't actually trying to quote-unquote kill Nintendo. Now, see, the thing is that Dolphin, I'm fairly certain, the only reason why he brings that up is because Dolphin was delisted from Steam because they didn't, because the Nintendo or someone came to Valve and was like, hey, don't put this on your platform. That's a completely different thing. I think Dolphin is still one of the most popular Wii emulators and GameCube emulators, if I'm remembering correctly. They still exist, so as far as I'm aware. However, the other two, Yuzu and Ryujinx, are the current, things that people are talking about, and they were taken down through cease and desist stuff. Now, again, technically speaking, they are legal. It's just the fact that people use these very legal, basically DVD-type players to take on ROMs that are illegally taken from. They don't actually, endorse any of that. In fact, they vehemently say, don't do this because you need to dump your own games on this thing. But again, people be people, and, some of the games you can't get anymore, they're gonna have to be taken one way or another. So, yeah. Overall, to talk about this whole thing is just, they weren't trying to take down Nintendo. They were just trying to preserve some of the games that Nintendo just doesn't want to preserve for whatever reason. Same thing with other emulation and other sorts of video game type things, where, guess what? The reason why PlayStation and Xbox are starting to put their games onto PC is because they're realizing their games can get life after they've been, out of print on their consoles for years. I don't know what else to tell you, dude.
This idea that they can just emulate any game that comes out with no repercussions, with no issues, with no problems. If they want to play the new Zelda game, oh, I can just pirate that. Whenever they want to play, WarioWare, oh, I can just emulate that. Again, every time a new Nintendo game comes out, someone tries to come out coping and seething that well, I can play that on my PC. This is not, it never has been true, right? Because there's a lot of technical issues.
I mean, it kind of is true, depending on who dumps the video game and where and whatever happens to it. Just Nintendo themselves don't like you dumping the game onto your PC. Again, legally dumping your game or whatever. I don't know, dude. Just it has happened and it continues to happen.
Involved, you have to set things up, it takes effort, you have to invest in specific controllers, and you have to get a hold of the games legally, right? Again, even the most
Again, all of that is practically true, except for the controller thing, which actually you don't necessarily need like an actual GameCube type controller to order to play this. Depending on it, you can set it up, and emulation's gotten so good now that they can emulate the controllers even on, like, say, a keyboard and mouse or something like that.
Hardcore of like emulation shills will try to tell you that like they get these games legally, even though they don't. But
I mean, again, see above, people do get them legally. Just depends.
the cope for the longest time when it comes to like the dominance of PC gaming is that everything was just available on PC, ready for you to download, and it was the premier gaming platform that can run everything with no issues. And yet, in 2024, we have seen a number of instances of Nintendo coming after the modding scene, the fan game scene, and now the emulators, right?
Okay, so to just quickly go through each of those, the modding scene, technically speaking, is illegal, quote unquote. We had to look this up, and due to the SRS whole drama, I actually managed to kind of look this up as a very weird but also stupid thing. That apparently if you are modding something, you are only modding it, and it's only quote legal so long as the person doesn't actually go after them. So again, depending on if they actually do that. The only exception to this, however, is if you are given mod tools and like a specific EULA. That thing is literally giving you the licensing rights to be able to say, hey, you can mod this game, just make sure to give credit or whatever the fuck. So yeah. However, for the next one of the fan games, that one's more of a dubious thing because that's, again, infringing on specific copyright usage of characters, which is a different matter, but also similarly related to modding at the same time. It's one of those weird things. But the last one is, again, emulation, which they're coming after it from the wrong place. They're basically cutting off the leaves of the tree without actually getting through to the root of the problem, which is the people who are illegally getting the games in the first place. So, yeah.
All of the major emulators that get any real traction, things like Yuzu and Ryujinx, they're being taken down left and right, desperately trying to keep themselves relevant, desperately trying to keep themselves in the mainstream eye, while avoiding the Nintendo ninjas trying to take them out at every opportunity. Right? It just can't be done. Right? It was a losing battle to begin with. Because
I mean, it can be done, has been done, and will be done because both of those programs are actually open source, meaning that anyone can take any of the developments and pick up right where it was left off. In fact, I'm fairly certain a couple of people actually did, hence why Ryujinx was to Yuzu stuff. So yeah, again, open source stuff, and people who like these actual things will continue the legacy of those things just under a different fork of it. So,
emulation was never really legal. What was happening was that Nintendo didn't really see the point in going after like emulators for older platforms, but now, in the modern era, now that they're trying to like get away with pirating like games 2 weeks before they come out, yeah, Nintendo does have has justification in coming after these people. Right? These guys are actively trying to impact Nintendo's business.
I mean, in some regards, you might be able to get away with that as a weird argument, but at the same time, here's the end part of that. The thing is that emulation is legal, technically, and is, well, not even technically, it actually is legal because there is legal precedent because of emulation stuff. What you will also understand here is that if emulation was illegal, guess what? That means that Nintendo themselves would be breaking the law technically under your guidance. Now, if you're trying to say, oh, well, they're not breaking it because they own the copyright and the licensing rights to it, maybe then you have a case there. But overall, again, the legal precedent is that the emulation software built to emulate the hardware of a given system usually falls under things such as fair use because it's using the platform of it and adjusting it enough to be able to play it on other hardware. It's just software and coding at the end of the day, so it's just unsure.
And they need to be taken out by any means necessary.
Those people are not trying to do it. The people who are actually pirating the games are. The people who run the pirating websites are, not people who are emulating them.
So the Nintendo ninjas are going around like uncovering all these links. I've seen entire YouTube channels vanish overnight because of just how quickly these people operate. Just people are in like a lifetime are serving lifetime sentences, like giving Nintendo money because of the things they did to them. Right?
Was one guy who I believe hacked Nintendo or was actively trying to do it. I don't know the specifics of that case, but as for the people who get their channels taken down, that's more of just Nintendo being kind of dicks, because, again, most of that would tend to fall under fair use if they know what they're doing in terms of gameplay. So...
again, people are downplaying this. They're ignoring the issue. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about what's inevitably going to happen. But this is the future, right? Is that all of Nintendo's classic games are going to be available through the Nintendo Switch Online service, right? It's going to be available. They're going to be available through a subscription. And we are supposed to believe that PC gaming is the superior alternative because you can play the same games after pirating them, right?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Getting the subscription service and having access to everything, like right there, you should pirate the games on PC for really no reason, right? There's no benefit to it. There's no reason to do it. It's not a better experience in spite of what some people will tell you, right? Like there is absolutely no reason to pirate a video game ever, right?
I mean, it legitimately is, depending on hardware stuff, because again, most of the actual hardware that the Nintendo Switch has is very severely outdated and not as powerful as that. Even just doing it on, say, a Steam Deck, which is, I think at this point, like 3-4 years out of the print now, overall, just... it's a better experience because of the hardier hardware and the more modernized hardware to be able to run stuff like that. Computers exponentially increase the value, or exponentially increase over a course of like 5 to 10-ish years, maybe even not that, maybe even just year over year. But it is a different experience because you get to run at a better frame rate, higher graphical fidelity, and just like it can be a smoother experience depending on, the hardware you play it on.
Right. All you have to do is just ask for the game to be released on Nintendo platforms, right? And it's kind of crazy looking at like the games that are available on Switch already, right? They're putting out lots of really niche like Super Nintendo stuff right now. Stuff like Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel and Arrow the Acrobat and a lot of other like more obscure like 90s platformers like that. And they're far from the only ones.
I find this very ironic, by the way, the way he just says asks for the thing to be released on Nintendo platforms. Like, I wouldn't go to a different place for it. Or, the people who are quote-unquote pirating or the people who are emulating on other platforms don't care about Nintendo in that context. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. But I think that'll about do it for this. There's like 3 minutes left in this, and frankly, I think that I've heard enough. The whole thing with the emulation and them taking down emulators doesn't seem to solve the root of the actual issue. The root of the issue seems to be the piracy itself, which, to be honest, piracy will and always kind of has been a thing ever since, well, law and pirates themselves decided to go out onto the 7 seas and sail. But at the end of the day, right, taking out the emulators is basically like taking out the VHS people, the people who make the VHS players, and not the people who are in their houses doing the VHS copying or doing the VHS recording or something like that. It doesn't solve the issue. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't get to the root of it. It just cuts off like the stem to be able to regrow into more trees, But anyway, guys, I think that'll about do it for today's episode of I Rant Into a Microphone about what a certain niche of people like on the internet. If you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any way, shape, or form, links down in the description below, please. And a like, comment, and subscribe is always, always lovely. We've hit about 1.2k, and I hope to maybe reach 1.5k by the end of the year. Don't think we're going to make it, though, but thank you all for your support all this time. My name is GamePenguin21, and a peace.